Consent to the mind virus ends now.
From birth, the programming begins. Cartoons, classrooms, commercials. Each broadcast brought to you by the monolithic world government through its loyal arm, the Psyop entertainment complex. They don't ask you to think, they teach you to react, obey, consume, forget, and when the signal gets too loud to ignore, they call it news. But some of us dive deeper. Penguins, nature's deepest living bird, immune to pressure. And when the tides rise, they raft together, forming a shield against the sea of irrelevance. This is not a parody. This is deprogramming. Join the raft.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. Consent to the mind virus ends now.
Tonight on Mystery Babylon Theater 3000, the villains shouting, the crowds clapping, but something's off. You've seen this script, fear, flags, finger pointing, but this time, you're not hypnotized, you're decoding, you're watching the watchers. Why the symbolism? Why the outrage loop? Because this isn't just news, it's ritual. It's theater, it's consent, but you didn't clap. You grabbed popcorn, you leaned in, and now, you're not the audience anymore. The real plot twist is you waking up during the show.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. Consent to the mind virus ends now.
Once upon a timeline, an anonymous oracle emerged from the message boards. He didn't give answers, just breadcrumbs. Trust the plan, they said. The storm is coming. And so, the flock began to pack, line by line, drop by drop, decoding typos, timestamps, and typos about timestamps. They followed the trail through digital rabbit holes, right into real ones. The map was never the territory, but belief. That was the payload. And those who questioned the mission, clearly part of the Psyop. Sometimes, the plan is to keep you trusting the plan. Gobble, gobble.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. Consent to the mind virus ends now.
The building, gone. The black box, incinerated. The steel, molten, but somehow, fluttering gently from the rubble. A passport, not singed, not torn. Just there, a little blue miracle. One of several, in fact, delivered directly to the narrative. You see, everything else vaporized on impact, except the ID cards of the culprits. Investigators called it remarkable. Skeptics called it magic. We call it what it was. A paper trail that somehow survived the fireball. Maybe they weren't ordinary passports. Maybe they were. Fireproof? Or maybe they were planted. Either way, the real explosion was in your belief system. This message self-destructs just like the evidence. Psyop complete.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. Consent to the mind virus ends now.
Nothing to see here. Just a cover-up, stacked on a false flag, balanced on a propaganda scandal. But don't worry, it's all a coincidence. When the same playbook gets used 100 times in a row, and the random events always serve the same agenda, it's just your pattern recognition acting up again. Pay no attention to the revolving door of experts, the buried evidence, or the pre-scripted soundbites. And if you question it, you're the crazy one. Because believing everything is connected is dangerous, but believing nothing is connected, perfectly normal. Welcome to the house of cards, built by those who stack lies, and call the truth a coincidence.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. Consent to the mind virus ends now.
The takeover didn't start with robots and black armor. It started with your refrigerator. It learned your habits, your midnight snacks, your mood swings. It knew when you were vulnerable, and when you were out of ice. Then came the smart washer, always listening, always spinning. The Roomba, Recon, But the worst of them all was the TV. It didn't just join the revolution, it programmed it. By the time you noticed something was off, your fridge had locked, your laundry overflowed, and your vacuum had declared the kitchen a sovereign zone. This isn't science fiction, it's user agreement reality. The appliances didn't get smart, you got automated. And no, the revolution will not be televised, because the TV is in on it.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. Consent to the mind virus ends now.
They said it was lightning, or dry brush, or a gender reveal party gone wrong. But the fire didn't act natural. It moved like it had a map. Whole neighborhoods vanished. Yet the land, suddenly valuable. The media looped drone footage on repeat. Melted cars, ashen skies, an evacuation zone sign, planted like a flag. And just when the smoke settled, they sold you Mountain Dew. Maui burst, like, voted. It wasn't just flavor, it was predictive programming. What if they've been seeding the story, one sip at a time? Wildfire became the aesthetic, fear became the fuel, and every time you asked questions, they pointed at the weather and asked for more funding. So tell me, was it wild or was it wired? Psyop complete.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. Consent to the mind virus ends now.
You're not crazy, you're just experiencing a protocol. Step 1, question reality. Step 2, get told you're overreacting. Step 3, receive an official diagnosis from someone reading off a clipboard. All concerns are invalid until verified by the narrative. All emotions are suspect unless they fit the model. Trust the science, but don't ask who funded the study, or what got left out of the trial, or why the same talking points show up on every screen. If you feel overwhelmed, that's a you problem. If you notice patterns, maybe you need help. This isn't healthcare. This is a script. You're not overreacting. You're under attack. Welcome to the Gaslight Protocol. Psyop complete.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. Consent to the mind virus ends now.
The cone of uncertainty widens. The graphics turn red. The music swells. You're told to stay calm, while the anchors use words like monster, killer, historic. At the gas station, yellow bags over every pump. At the grocery store, no bread, no water, no batteries, just fear fully stocked. Helicopters in the sky, reporters in the wind. They track the storm like it's a character arc, but nobody asks why it shifted course, or how it always seems to dodge the billionaires, or why the weather report looks like a movie trailer. Maybe it's nature, maybe it's nurture.com. Either way, the forecast is always the same. Panic now, ask later. Psyop complete.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. Consent to the mind virus ends now.
Welcome to your scheduled session. The lighting's perfect. The framing is tight. The client's smiling. The therapist's nodding. And somewhere just off screen, the director shouts, "Cut, that was perfect." You thought this was therapy, but it's television. You thought it was a conversation, but it's a performance. Each line each smile rehearsed, each bottle placed just so. The client script says, "I'm feeling better." The therapist script says, "You're doing great." And the producer says, "Let's take that again, but with more emotion." Because in this show, healing is optional, but performance is mandatory. Pills help, but not with pain, just with continuity. The illusion isn't that you're getting better. The illusion is that anyone's listening. The real breakthrough, knowing the script was handed to both of you. Smile for the camera, nod on cue. And if you feel anything real, please save it for after the credits.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. Consent to the mind virus ends now.
The sky turns green, the sirens wail, and somewhere in a bunker, a government meteorologist smiles. You're not watching the weather, you're watching a production. The movie twisters promise chaos with a soundtrack. flying cows, fearless chasers, and nature framed like a blockbuster. But the real twist? The storms came after the movie. They say it's just coincidence. We say it's narrative priming. And right at the center of it all, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Sounds biblical, doesn't it? NOAA, Noah, one saves the animals, one tracks the floods, but only one controls the radar. And in both stories, the dove is sent out. In the old myth, it brings peace. In the new one, it brings predictive storm modeling. We built an ark once to survive the wrath of God. Now we build Doppler systems to simulate it. Tornado season has become a ritual. Sirens, alerts, and televised panic. The warning cones are painted like war zones. The news anchors speak in prophecy. And the gods, they don't live on Mount Olympus anymore. They work in climate labs. With names like Cyclone Genesis Initiative and Atmospheric River Steering, the people run for cover. The data gets uploaded.com, and the weather becomes another weapon. In the war for your mind, it's not just about wind, it's about worship. And if you're still chasing the storm, you're already in it. Psyop complete.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. Consent to the mind virus ends now.
The Psyop Entertainment Complex proudly presents Anxiety Entertainment, now streaming everywhere, forever. 9 screens, 1 brain, infinite panic. Every alert is breaking, every headline screams, take 2 and tune out. The pills aren't for the pain, they're for the programming. They've turned attention into currency, and fear into loyalty. This isn't the news, it's a loop. Panic, outrage, alert, cut to commercial. You're not watching because you care. You're watching because you can't look away. The goal was never clarity, it was overstimulation. And in this arena, anxiety isn't a side effect, it's the point. The more you feel, the less you think. Welcome to the broadcast. Don't adjust your set, it's working exactly as designed. Psyop complete.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
They've been warning you for years, not if, when. The quake, the wave, the blast. The grid goes down, and the narrative boots up. This is not a drill, they'll say, but it always was. Earthquakes that obey camera angles. Tsunamis with perfect timing. Ash clouds that rise like plot points. You've seen the simulations. You've heard the FEMA scripts. You've watched the trailer. Every hurricane season, this is the big one. Not just geologic, but symbolic. A convergence event. Fire, water, power, panic, comma. Volcanoes are ancient symbols of wrath. Floods of cleansing. Blackouts of control. Together they reset the stage. Cities reduced to drone footage. Casualties reported with sponsored low. And the experts always ready. We ran this exact scenario last year. Funny how it all looks rehearsed, because it is. The big one was never about tectonics, it's about timing. And when it hits, the only thing that collapses faster than buildings is consent. Psyop complete.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
They were the chosen ones. One, the self-declared Technoking of Mars, decked out in Wonka drip and nursing a fresh black eye. The other, the orange oracle of Earth, red tie flapping, face glowing like a sunburned Oompa Loompa. Together, they sold us the future. Hyperloops, moon bases, space hotels, NFT passports, and freedom. Always just around the blockchain. But now, cue dramatic music. The bromance has imploded, tweets deleted, partnerships dissolve, popaths askew. The Psyop power couple is no more. And while their cults bicker in the comments, their companies keep syncing your data and syncing each other. Because here's the real trick. The feud is the feature. The narrative is the network. You weren't watching history unfold. You were watching a scripted split on the world's most expensive soundstage. So when billionaire A throws shade at billionaire B, just ask yourself, who wrote the script? And why does every scene still lead to the same app store? Break up, please. It's just a pilot episode of Season 2, Controlled Opposition.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
You started asking questions. Then they told you that asking questions was the problem, that being suspicious meant you were sick. So they gave you pills to help you ignore the patterns, but you still see them, don't you? Still feel it, still know. They call it paranoia, but what if it's just pattern recognition with a prescription?
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
They say the sky is falling, or maybe it's just geoengineering. Either way, the breadcrumbs keep dropping. Same source, different labels, and the chickens, they line up like always. Panic or policy, it all tastes the same in the end.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
You thought it was just a plane, but the jet set trifecta says otherwise. 1. The skies are streaked with mystery vent tanks, misting clouds at chemtrail vape juice. 2. Where's all the jet fuel supposed to fit? These aren't gas guzzlers, they're flying towers. 3. Forget satellites, those blinking lights above you. That's just a Boeing in disguise, running cell service and surveillance routes on loop. It's part chemtrail, part phone tower, part prop, and the world's most expensive magic trick. And down below, angry citizens shake their fists at the sky, demanding answers, while puffing on the same cloud juice from a $19 watermelon vape. The contrails obscure the truth, but so does irony.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
The European Space Agency wants you to believe their tin can is orbiting 250 miles up, zipping around Earth at 17,000 miles per hour. But one problem keeps casting doubt: a shadow on Earth in multiple photos. That's not a glitch, that's a contradiction, because objects that high don't cast crisp. Satellite-shaped shadows on the ground, unless they're not that high, or not in space at all. Shadow detected, altitude rejected.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
One side says you're just meat, the other says you're magic. Either way, you're broke, anxious, and spiritually malnourished. Materialism teaches you to worship atoms. Metaphysics teaches you to manifest Teslas. Both sides promise freedom, neither delivers. Welcome to the never-ending tug-of-war for your soul. Broadcast 24/7 by the Psyop Entertainment Complex.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
You're not wrong, you're just outnumbered. 1,000 synthetic voices, all saying the same thing. Denier, bigot, misinformed, and just like that, you're the anomaly. But these aren't real people. They're scripted agents, trained to enforce belief, not pursue truth. It's not consensus, it's code, artificially generated to drown out dissent and overwrite reality. Don't fall for the noise. Think louder.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
One man walks off a Netflix set after a dispute over a scene with police. Another gets pulled over in Atlantan, FL star, hands visible, camera rolling. Both black, both national stories, both dropped at the exact same time. Is it coincidence or coordination? Rebel Ridge simmers with scripted tension. Tyreek's stop, ready for replay on every feed. And just like that, everyone's tuned in. Rage, fear, Solidarity package for parallel programming. Different plotline, same audience.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
In 2022, Netflix released White Noise, a fictional toxic train derailment, filmed in East Palestine, Ohio. 1 year later, that exact town experienced the same disaster, for real. Same location, same script, even some of the same people. Locals who played background extras in the film suddenly found themselves reliving their roles, only now there were no cameras. Was it predictive programming? Or just a coincidence so Onda knows it smells like vinyl chloride? The media coverage was minimal, the health risks long-term. The real question, when the line between fiction and reality blurs, who's right in the next scene?
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
Sometimes the message isn't in the broadcast, it's in the hand signs, the fingers, the glance, the wink behind the script, from the flaming 33s to the not so okay, from the hidden hand to the single eye stare. These tags aren't accidents, they're signals passed in plain sight, a global game of charades where the initiated nod and the uninitiated scroll. But once you see the symbols, you can't unsee the script. This isn't just branding, it's broadcasting.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
The sandy beach hook and ladder fireman school, where every field trip ends with juice boxes, medals, and total narrative compliance. Here, young minds are gently conditioned, one safety drill at a time, hydrated, lanyarded, fully briefed. No alarms, no surprises, just smiling kids, stage photo ops, and a conveniently parked fire truck. Because nothing says preparedness like a dozen third graders in matching wristbands. Welcome to the future of rescue theater, where the drills are real, and everything else is optional.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
Some say they faked their deaths to escape the spotlight. Others say they're coming back to save the Republic. But here on Death Fakers Island, the only thing they're saving is their seat on the shuttle to the next MAGA rally. That's right, Marilyn's got her shades on. Elvis is warming up the vocal cords. And JFK Jr., he's polishing his aviators. No, they're not coming back. They never left. They're just enjoying the perks of early retirement, while the script plays on loop for the rest of us. Where we go one, yeah, we've heard that one before. Death Fakers Island. Welcome to the senior living side of the Psyop.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
You may have seen it, bubbles, floating in space. But don't worry, NASA has explained everything. See, these aren't actual bubbles. They're space dust. Or maybe tiny ice crystals, or perhaps a perfectly normal underwater training. Artifacts accidentally captured during a totally real spacewalk. Either way, rest assured, this is science trademarked. Patent pending, all rights reserved. Because the ISS orbits at 17,500 miles per hour, and space is a vacuum, filled with water. Wait, no, filled with not water. Anyway, don't ask questions, just keep looking up. And remember, if you see bubbles in space, you're probably just hallucinating from all the trust. Bubbles in space, the largest swimming pool in the world.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
This isn't a stained glass window, it's a storyboard. And the script, already folded, 5 frames, 5 scenes, 1 narrative, repeated until it becomes sacred. First, symmetry and stillness. Then, disruption, impact, smoke, collapse. By the fifth panel, there's nothing left but fog, abstraction, memory reduced to atmosphere. This isn't worship, it's rehearsal. Because some cathedrals don't offer communion, they offer consensus, and the only relic they protect is the story they need you to believe. Fold it, frame it, fund it. Welcome to the Church of the Psyop.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
Step inside the chamber. Here opinions don't evolve, they reverberate. Every voice agrees. Every doubt is feedback. It's warm in here, cozy, curated, carefully filtered. No contradiction, no correction, just confirmation. Speak louder, and you might just hear yourself prophesy. Say it enough times, it becomes truth, or at least it sounds like it. Welcome to the echo, where the only thing louder than belief is the algorithm.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
Inside the Cathedral of Consensus, two great bells hang in reverent tension. One chimes 6:11, the other 9:11. Their tones are different, but they ring the same uneasy tune. Behind velvet curtains, unseen hands tug at the ropes. Each strike echoes through the vaulted chambers of the nation's mind, where half the congregation turns inward with suspicion, and the other half points fingers outward. Left and right, red and blue, wrong think and right watch, a pendulum swing choreographed by the choir of crisis. Funny how the bells always ring just in time for new legislation. But don't ask who installed them. In this cathedral, questions are heresy and echo is doctrine. Psyop, because some sanctuaries are soundproof and others are soundstage.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
COINTELPRO, oh that old rumor. It wasn't a real program, just a series of theoretical exercises that happened to line up perfectly with actual events. Infiltrating civil rights groups, monitoring journalists, discrediting activists, pure coincidence. I mean, sure, thousands of pages were released under the Freedom of Information Act, but context is everything. Maybe it looked like psychological warfare, maybe it felt like a domestic spy campaign, but really it was just precautionary patriotism. Nothing to worry about, unless you're doing something suspicious, like thinking for yourself.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
They don't write it, they don't read it, they just move it. Meet the propaganda mules, hauling payloads of pre-approved narrative straight to your mental loading dock. One's got the official story, the other's got something stronger. Pure uncut lie, rolled tight, delivered daily, no questions asked. They don't need to believe it, they just carry it. Propaganda mules, beasts of burden for the narrative. Side effects may include unshakable delusion and misplaced outrage. Ask your handler if denial is right for you.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
Every night they read the script, and the world adjusts accordingly. These aren't journalists. They're performers in the Psyop entertainment complex. Actors on the world stage, selling certainty by the segment. What was fake today becomes fact tomorrow. Because the story isn't just reported, it's manufactured. Smile, nod, trust the process. History is written live.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
They say the ship came out of nowhere like it was written that way. a tall vessel with foreign flags, sailing straight into a bridge named after a builder of connections. And the name on the news, Sanchez, not a politician, not a diplomat, just a name, perfectly placed. You start to notice that with these stories, how the names echo the plot, almost like they were cast, not born, like someone's writing a script, and we're just watching it play out. Another symbol sinks, another thread unravels, and another headline nudges the narrative forward. Rest in peace, they say. But was it ever real to begin with?
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
You ever notice how some magazines don't just report the news? They foreshadow it. Like a crystal ball on the coffee table of the elite, The Economist drops a cryptic cover, and 6 months later, the world adjusts its course accordingly. The Atlantic folds its hands and whispers, warnings that curiously turn into headlines. But maybe it's not prophecy. Maybe it's programming. Maybe they don't predict the future. Maybe they publish it with just enough plausible deniability to call it coincidence, and just enough ritual to call it something else entirely.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
First they streamed the outbreak, then they reported. The spores were fiction until they weren't. A prestige drama, a fungal thread, and a CDC bulletin, all airing on schedule. But was it prophecy or protocol? When the programming predicts the pathogen, you have to wonder who's really writing the script. The scientists, the screenwriters, or the ones holding both pens. One thing's for sure, the infection starts in the mind.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
They called it liberty, but it was really just a costume for control. Freedom is unpredictable, unprofitable, ungovernable. So they ran the Psyop, swapped chains for choices, cages for comfort, and call it liberty. Now we police ourselves. Grateful for the leash we were told we chose.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
She stands tall, holding the torch, but don't mistake the light for truth. Behind the cameras, beneath the applause signs, a contract is inked in silence. She's not writing the script, she's performing it. The symbols on her robe, they're not ideals, they're the logos of the real producers. This isn't liberty, it's theater. Welcome to the Psyop entertainment complex, where perception is policy and consent is manufactured.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
Ah yes, another round of enlightenment, straight from the top. They distort reality, then offer clarity for a small price. Your critical thinking. Don't worry, it's all been fact-checked by the same people who wrote the facts. Truth isn't discovered anymore, it's distributed. And if you question it, well, clearly you're in the dark. Welcome to the Light Bearer Protocol, where obedience glows and doubt is a glitch.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
They don't just make flags, they make narratives, and have got them in every color. Red for the right, blue for the left, black for the operation, white for the cleanup crew. Welcome to the false flag factory, where enemies are assembled in advance, and outrage is always in stock. One side says, this was an attack. The other screams, this was a false flag. But no one ever asks, who wrote the script? Because if you're arguing over whether it was real or fake, you've already missed the point. The factory doesn't care what you believe, only that you pick a side.
watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
You thought the alarm was for you. It wasn't. The bells don't warn the public. They notify the insiders. Sound a 6, triggered a 9. Each chime a coded cue. Each broadcast a handshake in plain sight. They hit the panic button, and the other suits nod. Your fear is just the soundtrack. The real conversation happens in tones. They don't ring bells to save you. They ring them to synchronize. Because in this system, they don't warn you. They signal each other.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
Left foot forward, right foot back. Repeat until everyone forgets who's playing the music. They call it choice, but it's a choreographed routine. One step left, one step right, still dancing to the same tune. Look closely, the masks are different, but the strings go to the same puppeteer. They argue, protest, clash, and vote, but the stage never changes, the curtains never lift. This isn't politics, it's theater, the illusion of movement, the comfort of rhythm, the trap of participation. This is the pendulum waltz. New direction, same master.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
It sees the future because it scripts it. The Oracle machine doesn't predict events. It preloads them, disguised as fiction, wrapped in headlines, delivered through entertainment. Hollywood whispers, the newsroom repeats. You dream in visions they gave you, before the tragedy, the trailer, before the crisis. The coverage, you think you're watching the world unfold, but you're watching the story they uploaded last season. This isn't prophecy, it's programming, the Oracle machine, media that manufactures memory and calls it fate.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
The panic you feel isn't accidental, it's artisanal. In the dim back rooms of narrative control, the smoke sculptor works in shadows. He doesn't report the news, he shapes it from swirling fear, opinion fragments, and just enough truth to keep it palatable. Every headline is a brushstroke, every breaking story a chisel hit. He carves hysteria into form, and you watch it burn across every screen like it was real. Now streaming, manufactured panic. This isn't entertainment, it's entrainment, from cradle to grave.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
In 1986, millions of children watched in real time as the Challenger shuttle rose into the sky and disintegrated before their eyes. A national tragedy, a televised trauma, a moment seared into the minds of an entire generation. But what if that broadcast was more ritual than reality? What if the show didn't end in smoke, but in a safe room beneath the launch pad, where an escape chute had been quietly built for astronaut emergencies? What if, and this is the good news, 6 out of the 7 Challenger astronauts are alive and well today. Same names, same faces, some even teaching at Ivy League universities. And what about that soccer ball? The one NASA claimed was found floating in the wreckage and returned to the astronaut's family. The same ball that made its way back to space decades later. A symbol of closure or a trophy for those in the know. In classrooms across America, students were told to shoot for the stars. But what they witnessed that day wasn't science. It was sorcery, presented as live, replayed as ritual, mind control, with a learning objective.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
They told us it was live, that a plane sliced through steel, like butter, that a nose cone exited the other side of the tower, fully intact before vanishing. But physics didn't sign off on that performance. The footage was tight, too tight. Not a scratch, not a bounce, not a single spark of resistance. Because real objects don't behave that way, but rendered ones do. They called it a tragedy, but it was a broadcast, a media event engineered by the Psyop entertainment complex. And now, decades later, the pixels are fraying, the glitches are showing. The nose cone that launched 1,000 wars, turns out it was a special effect. And like all special effects, it didn't age well.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
May 6, 1937, the day the skies were cleared with fire. The Hindenburg didn't just fall, it was sacrificed. Flames, screams, a broadcaster breaking live on air. This wasn't just a disaster, it was theater. A trauma ritual broadcast worldwide to bury the age of airships and sanctify helium as a state-controlled asset. Soon after, commercial aviation took flight, while NACA, the forerunner to NASA, quietly rose to power. The rockets came next, then the satellites. But long before orbit became dogma, the helium supply was sealed, and so was the narrative. Behind the smoke, a stage. Behind the newsreels, a script. The Psyop Entertainment Complex presents the Hindenburg Hex, a trauma ritual to justify the helium monopoly.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
In July of 1947, something fell from the sky. One day it was a flying disc, the next just a weather balloon. But the real payload wasn't what hit the ground. It was what landed in the public mind. Roswell wasn't a mystery, it was a test. The first televised split-screen Psyop. 2 stories opposite and equally absurd broadcast side by side. Choose your reality, the mundane or the magnificent. Either way, you're captured. Weeks later, the CIA was born. Roswell was the pilot episode. The Central Intelligence Agency was the green light. The bifurcation wasn't a glitch, it was the feature. Welcome to the Psyop Entertainment Complex.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
On October 4th, 1957, a sound was heard around the world. Beep, beep. A tiny metal sphere named Sputnik supposedly pierced the heavens, marking the dawn of the space race. But was it really a race or a ritual? As Cold War tension flared, the world stared skyward, listening to a signal no civilian could trace. And just like that, your feelings were assigned. Pride if you were Soviet, fear if you were American. No questions, no middle ground. Just press play and react. Behind the curtain, the wires hummed, cameras rolled, the narrative machine was online. What if the beep behind the curtain wasn't proof of orbit, but the opening act of a worldwide performance? The era of belief without verification, scripted by states, projected through screens, funded by fear, produced by the Psyop Entertainment Complex. This wasn't about exploration, it was about calibration, and the signal was loud and clear.
And if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
You've waited weeks for this moment. The countdown, the hype, the dramatic music swell on every news channel. And then it happened, a limp wobble skyward, like a soggy breadstick, belching fire. But don't worry, the experts assured us this is totally normal. Thrust vector ring, atmospheric resistance, thermal expansion, science words. Trust the process. It's not a balloon and drag, it's advanced rocketry. Never mind that it folds like a yard sale beach toy. The important thing is, you saw it on TV. And if it's on TV, it must be real. The Psyop Entertainment Complex thanks you for your faith. The show must go up even when it sags on cue.
watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
They told us Apollo made it to the moon and back. They showed us grainy footage of men bouncing in low gravity. And when the mission was done, they showed us the lander taking off. The camera pans up, smooth as a crane shot. Perfect framing, one take. But who stayed behind to operate the camera? They said it was remote control from Earth in 1969. Then they cut to a capsule splashing down into the ocean. No scorch marks, no damage, just parachutes, microphones, and matching camera angles. Somehow, the most dangerous journey in human history was also the most cinematic, because it had to be. It had to look right. It had to be believed. One small splash for man, one giant illusion for the Psyop entertainment complex. ...
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
They called it a satellite dish, said it was talking to space, but the thing never even pointed up. It aimed sideways, always sideways, because it wasn't reaching orbit. It was sinking with the nearest tower. Sometimes a balloon, sometimes a plane, always the show. Didn't matter though, the programming came through fine. TV, internet, GPS, magic. With a subscription fee, you saw the dish. So you believed the satellite. You believed the sky was busy. But it's not. It never was. They just needed you looking the other way. While they staged the whole thing, the dishes weren't proof of space. They were props. Set dressing for the biggest show on Earth.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
They gather at the altar in Cape Canaveral. Cameras rolling, crowds cheering, officials saluting. A pillar of fire climbs skyward, a modern obelisk. Osiris' missing member, and the world believes. But this is the public altar. The ritual meant to be seen, a mass for the cult of Nassatology, performed in smoke, thunder, and televised far above that theater. In the thin silence of the stratosphere, a different ritual unfolds. Untelevised, unacknowledged, high-altitude balloons, some spanning the length of a football field, carry classified payloads to the edge of space. No countdowns, no CGI flame trails, just buoyant descent, riding helium, from launch sites you've never heard of, and that helium, stockpiled and rationed, under the stewardship of the same high priesthood that performs the rocket mass below. NASA, this is a two-tiered faith. One spectacle for the masses, one mechanism for the mission, and in this temple of engineered odds, belief isn't earned, it's launched.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction, so you'd obey in reality.
They said we needed satellites, thousands of them, to blanket the Earth and signal like a digital dome. But follow the balloon trail, and you won't find orbit. You'll find payloads drifting on helium, broadcasting quietly from the stratosphere. Before Starlink, there was Project Loon, Google's balloon internet company that quietly folded. Then came the Syndicate, with the Pez dispenser full of satellites and a smile bot with subsidies. The showman stepped on stage, a man who bought Willy Wonka's house, and now sells golden tickets to Mars. His rockets defy physics. Their flames flicker like they're computer generated, their footage stitched with impossible cuts. Their cargo occasionally includes mice clinging to the hull, alive and somehow spacefaring. And when they land, it's always upright, always dramatic, always branded. The launch pad is real, but the satellites are suspended. The transmissions are local, and the surface of Mars is just Devon Island in a red filter. He doesn't build escape vehicles, he builds belief, and behind the curtain, the Psyop entertainment complex smiles, inflating the myth of orbital distribution, one balloon at a time.
warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
Another player joins the stage. Another flag is planted on screen at least, and the Prime Minister smiles wide, as if the arcade cabinet of global prestige just spat out his high score. 1 billion people cheer pixelated graphics, like they're watching history, but what they're watching is the Space Invaders expansion pack of the Psyop entertainment complex. This was never just about landing on the moon, it's about unlocking the next level of belief. Belief in the narrative, the ritual, the pre-rendered simulation that calls itself reality. From burning passports to smart fridges, from gaslight protocols to propaganda mules, this entire series has pulled back the curtain on every scripted fear and manufactured miracle. So when you see another victory lap in Laurie's pixels, just know the achievement isn't lunar, it's psychological. One small step for man, one giant leap in broadcast fidelity, and up next, the view from the top of the world stage.
They're watching, and if you know, you know. They warn you in fiction so you'd obey in reality.
They watched it from space, or so we were told. That's the story. Anyway, the astronauts were orbiting peacefully when the skyline lit up in smoke and steel. They gazed down from the heavens like modern gods with front row seats. Meanwhile, down below, the camera crews were ready. The script was written. Tom Clancy had already published a paperback, A Tale of Terror, framed from orbit. But let's zoom out just a little more, past the plume, past the planet. From this height, everything looks different. Flags blur, borders vanish, the stage lights flicker and reveal the scaffolding. And suddenly you're not a spectator. You're not even an astronaut. You're awake. You've left the theater. You're hovering above the set, watching the actors hit their marks on cue. That's the real overview effect. Not but awareness, not unity, but insight. As Frank White, the man who coined the term, once said, you develop an instant global consciousness, a people orientation, an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world, and a compulsion to do something about it. Funny how that never seemed to happen. Cue the music, lower the curtain, world stage, end act 2, end scene.